Welcome to today's episode for people interested in the extraordinary, yet ancient and often long forgotten stuff. This is your host, Joseph Schinwald from homebythebeach.com. And our guest today is Mónica Esgueva. Mónica, did I say this the right way, Esgueva?
It's Esgueva, actually.
Esgueva, okay. All right, Mónica is
Yes.
from Madrid, and I speak the Spanish, but I learned it in Latin America, and sometimes in Spain, there's differences, right? Esgueva.
Right. It's a different accent. It's a little bit like the States and England or Australia. It's
Yes.
that kind of difference.
Mónica is a renowned figure whose journey and expertise in mindfulness, personal transformation, and spirituality are transforming lives globally. Her latest work, and she wrote many, many books, and she's quite famous and popular in Latin America, but with her new book, her latest work, The 7 Levels of Wisdom in English, she's now conquering the English-speaking world. And The 7 Levels of Wisdom is that book. And alongside her impactful role as a transformational coach, Mónica is a celebrated self-development teacher and spiritual guide, known for her ability to merge Eastern and Western philosophies into actionable wisdom. Her journey from a successful career in international business to a decade-long spiritual exploration in India and Nepal under the tutelage of Tibetan lamas, including the Dalai Lama, has equipped her with a unique blend of practical and profound insights. So I've been thinking so much about this now since I read your book, Mónica, The 7 Levels of Wisdom, because when I did my thesis in America in divinity, I studied, and you probably know this, I studied the 10 ox herding pictures. This is a Zen Buddhist allegory where somebody in the first round is a round picture. The first one is it's a series of 10. The first one is actually searching. So it's actually a spiritual seeker. And then he discovers there is a bull, an ox, and he discovers it that that is his human nature, right? And he has to tame it. And then he transcends it. It becomes very still, and he's only himself. The ox is gone, and suddenly there's only an empty circle. So the ox, the self, everything is gone. It's just absolute nothingness and everything. And then he comes back into the last 10 ox herding pictures, and there is the Dalai Lama, is the Bodhisattva. And so I wrote my thesis on it. So when I looked at your book, and it was so interesting to me, and I had so many questions about levels, right? So we're going from levels. It's also in the Abraham Maslow theory, as you wrote in the book. And we have to go through one level after the other, and we are having lots of challenges the higher we get, because many times, as we can compare, and you compare the samsara and Maya with the matrix, basically, when we are getting out of this matrix, we are, due to our awakening, we are very much challenged by society in many ways. That would be such a fascinating topic to talk about today, that those levels, like your book, the name of the book, The 7 Levels of Wisdom, and how they are interrelated, and what is the last one, and how do we move from one to another, and what can we expect when we are in higher levels.
I think the topic of your thesis is very interesting, because it's actually how it goes. It's a very good metaphor of our own journey on this earth. You know, we are on a 3-dimensional planet, and here the challenges that we have to go through are very, very harsh. So many people talk about Earth as I would say, as a school for souls, and I like saying it's really a boot camp, because it's so difficult, and the tests and the challenges are so hard that it's not easy at all. So here, only the strongest of the strongest are able to really overcome the obstacles and keep evolving at a faster pace. I do think that we are all evolving, whether we are doing it consciously or not. But it's just we choose the pace through our awareness, our willingness to work on ourselves, and our willingness to grow. Because what I have seen is that human beings grow very little in one lifetime. We tend to go through the motions, we tend to get into a herd mentality and do whatever we are told. And we just follow the rules, but we don't think for ourselves. We don't make many decisions really that are really important for ourselves. So in a way, we just like to obey whatever expert or authority tell us to do. So when we do that, we act as children. And then we stay in that low level consciousness for a long time. So I think the first step to go ahead and start climbing the ladder of consciousness is to realize that maybe there's something else apart from the daily life, from the emotions that we go through, from having dinner, lunch, go to work, sleep, take care of the chores, and something else. As long as you think that daily life is all there is and that your body is who you are, well, you're not going to progress much. So it's only when you think or you realize, okay, maybe there's something else. And most people don't come to that point unless there is some major crisis going on in their lives, where they don't find that they can suppress their suffering with distractions and just going for a drink or for a few drinks and just fulfilling their chores every day, you know. So that's why we all have to encounter big challenges sometimes in our lives, because those challenges potentially have the seed of awakening. And awakening is only awakening to your true nature, to realizing that we are not our minds, we are not our thoughts, we are not our possessions, we are not our status, we are not our relationships, we are not what we think we are. And it's only when you start doubting and questioning yourself then the first step of awakening starts. So I think we have to realize that these are the rules on this earth. And it's only when you understand that the rules are only a paradigm, but not the only paradigm, when you can start seeing, okay, maybe I can leave the matrix. Maybe this is just samsara. Maybe there's something else. Maybe I'm not bound to the rules here. I'm really something bigger, something deeper, that is our essence and is connected with everyone else's essence. You know?
Yes. Yes, that you know, it's just always fascinating listening also to your episodes on the podcast, and I have to say, you know, that you have always such a clear understanding of awakening and the matrix, or you say like in the Maya, the illusion in Hinduism or samsara in Buddhism, and the word according to Hinduism is that lila, no? The lila, it's and the Buddha said it many times. It's all like, and even in Hinduism, the Brahman, the city of Brahman, it's all like an illusion. We're walking on this city, but we never see the reality behind it. I personally say what I love sometimes when I like just recently I had a beautiful conversation with some friends at night here in this small village in Spain on the island of Mallorca, and you're from Madrid, so we are not so far away. Usually, I'm sometimes always with Americans, like it's far away, California, right? And you know, then people are coming to these discussions of who we are, and and suddenly it occurs to me, then I feel really free when I realize that this universe, the all, everything, is I am that manifestation of it in my little own way, and everybody is.
Right.
And we're looking
Right.
for some brain outside. And for some understanding outside, but we are the brain of the universe. We are the ones who give it meaning, and we are perfectly complete. We are complete.
Absolutely.
So,
I like the metaphor, and I see it like an octopus. You know, we are part of the octopus, but we just identify with the tentacle. So we think we are the tentacle, and the tentacle is independent and separate. And it's not true. It's just part of the whole, and everyone is a tentacle of that big octopus that is source, that is all that is. Yes, the oneness.
yes.
And it's only because we forget and we cannot see it with our physical eyes that we think that that's it. It doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So it's only when you meditate and you open your inner eyes that you realize, okay, there's more to life than what I see with my own eyes. And our physical vision is very limited, you know, because of our brain. Our brain is just the filter through which we see the world. But if we didn't have this brain, this particular brain of ours, we will see that everything is just energy, like clouds of energy moving around. And most of what we think is solid is just empty space. And all that energy is interconnected with everything else. You know, we are connected with the mountains, we are connected with the trees, we are connected with each other, we are connected with the animals, we are connected with other planets. That's it. It's just that to be able to incarnate here, we have to go through the ego software and also adopting this kind of brain that is very limiting.
Mhm.
So it's a big test for all souls here to be able to stay in this body, but realize that we are not the body, and see and discover and explore who we really are. But of course, not many people are willing to do so.
Yes, well, it's like you in an interview of yours, when you said somebody asked you, "How did your journey start?" and you said, "I've been always spiritual." I remember that also myself. I've been always spiritual. That makes you kind of strange to some people. I remember I was only like 6 or 7 years, and I was in the garden with friends. We did some camping, and I was looking at the universe, and I don't know exactly what I was asking, but I realized the people are not even interested in the question. You know, the other children were not interested in the question. So but then I said to myself, well, that's reflecting back to myself, and I got the answer somehow. And it's I don't know what it is, but many times it's hard to believe that other people sometimes are just not open to this.
Well, it has to do with the levels of consciousness. I think when you increase your level of consciousness, so many things look natural to you. It's like, okay, why some people never ask where they come from, or where is the meaning of life, or the importance of living a life with a purpose, because they are just in the survival mode. They are just too busy with just surviving and entertaining themselves. And because that level of consciousness, they have not reached the time where you do ask questions, where you do question yourself, you question society, you question everything, to be able to arrive to your own answers.
Yeah.
And to start your path, your inner path. And that only comes at a certain level of consciousness. It doesn't come before. So it's not about being better or worse, or being superior or inferior. It's not about that. We all go through the same levels of consciousness, and we will all go through all of them until we graduate at the very end. So it's just, we have been there, all of us, you know, and there are other people that are more advanced than we are. So it's just a ladder that we have to climb in one way or another. And it's just because we have free will, we can choose when we do it, how we do it, and how fast we do it. But otherwise, we will have to do it, all of us. So I always said to myself, okay, since we have to do it, let's do it as soon as possible.
Yes. Yes. It's like it's so easy in the world to say I do this later. But the thing is, once you are in it, it becomes You cannot differ. You cannot, like you said, you cannot do it without it. You cannot do it differently. You can't go back anymore. You will act a little bit strange for everybody else. In a way, maybe you, like you said in another interview I listened to, you just left your career and you had to do it. And you just, for others, that's not so easy to understand why you act the way you act. And that is definitely one of those where you climb those levels, right? But for me, it's also like very challenging. It has always been challenging for me to recognize that when you are just, you have a different perception. Suddenly you get a different perception of everything. You cannot anymore count on other people having the same perception than you. You say your opinion and you say it lightly, not too strong-minded, strong-headed, but you see right away what did I just say? Nobody wants to hear this. It's like, but then you also sometimes, because you become so sensitive, you also sometimes maybe provoke some reactions where you think, wow, could that person be so angry at me? I just forgot to pay my bill. It was late, 11 o'clock, right? And like in a bar or whatever, right? Something like this. And then you say, wow, I could never. But then what is the answer to this? And the answer to this, in my opinion, or family, I mean, everybody, I've experienced it the last years. I mean, it was just really so surprising. I would have never expected a few people of my family to be reacting in the way they did. But then what is the answer to all this? And the answer is really, for me at least, and I did my research in Buddhist scriptures also, and the answer was clear, was compassion. So you're learning actually in those stages when you climb it, you learn the most important aspect of it. That is compassion. You can't have controversies, or arguments. This is not spiritual, in my opinion. But
Absolutely.
it can
Absolutely.
be
I
a very
think
lonely thing.
it is a lonely path, and I think it's one of the things that one has to accept from the very beginning, that this is not the path of the crowd. So you will always be the weird one, the different one. You're going sometimes to be rejected because of your ideas and your mindset and your outlook on life. And so many times you feel like, okay, why do I do this? It's why do I make my life so difficult? But there is something in you, something within, like a big impulse and a motivation and an inner calling that tells you this is the right way for me. And I don't mind what others choose or don't choose. It's none of my business, because the path towards enlightenment or ascension or self-transcendence, whatever you want to call it, it's a path that each soul has to go through. So we should not expect to go with company. It is true that a big portion of humanity, and it's still a minority, of course, but it's the biggest minority I have ever seen, is awakening. So many people that before will just didn't want to hear about all these things, now they are very interested. Why? Because things are changing. The earth is shifting,
Yes.
and the vibrations are shifting too. And so many people are realizing that material life and material success on its own is so shallow and unfulfilling and not satisfying at all. So they are looking for something else. And then we realized, okay, maybe I can start speaking up. Maybe I can do a Zoom like we are doing today on a podcast. Maybe we can start expanding this, because so many people are looking for something else. And of course, we will not, we shouldn't expect it to be the majority. The majority of people are still in a different paradigm. They're still wanting to have more, to succeed more, to accumulate more, to be more powerful, to have more money. Okay, that's fine. It's their choice. We have to respect everybody's path. But fortunately, more and more people are waking up. And I think this is a great news for everyone that is on an inner path of awakening, because the more the merrier. And I think the critical mass is necessary for the world to change. So we all have to give our best.
Yeah, and I remember another interview you had with another podcast, this is the top level podcast you're on, that you said that you actually wrote the book because of it. You saw the time, the emergency actually now, and the importance now that you write about it. And could you tell me a little bit more about it?
Sure. Well, I don't think it was my thing. I think I was just a vessel of it. I got the inspiration from a higher ground to write this book in English, which was such a feat for me because, okay, I wrote 8 books before this one, but all in Spanish. That is my mother tongue. So it was very difficult to write this book. And then it took me, as you know, Joseph, 5 years until someone was interested in publishing it in the US and worldwide.
Hmm.
And I understood all those during those 5 years. Of course, I questioned myself, but I always thought, this is not coming from my ego. It's not my goal. This is something I just received that I needed to share.
Mhm.
So I guess it's just a question of timing. And sure enough, the timing came, and I think it had to be after the pandemic. I had to be after so many more people are awakening. So the book can be well received and can help more people. And it takes a lot of faith. It takes a lot of surrendering because we think that we know how things need to happen when they need to happen. And we don't. Our ego is really blind. And we have to be humble enough to accept that there is a bigger plan,
Yes,
and we are just an instrument of something bigger.
yes. So yeah, we have been talking about the developmental stages and the stages of wisdom. And how do you define wisdom? So we're talking about that definition a little bit. What is wisdom for you?
For me, wisdom, there is, first I would say, there is information. And nowadays we have an overload of information. Information is readily available, and we have too much information, so much that we cannot really integrate it. The next step will be knowledge, is when you are able to keep that information, or the most important information for you, within your mind, and that would be knowledge. And the third step will be wisdom. And for me, wisdom is when you are able to embody the knowledge that you have in such a way that you can use it in your everyday life. So it's not longer an intellectual thing. It's not an intellectual trip. It's something that you are able to experience every day. And wisdom is also aligned with virtues and ethics, and understanding the world with a certain deep insight. It's not just that you take whatever you have heard someone else tell you about life. Is that you have your own insights because you have been investigating within yourself. So you know what is true for you and what is not true, which is very difficult because human beings don't have usually the capacity to differentiate truth from falsehood. And I think this is one of the reasons we are in such a dire straits in the world right now, because people believe everything they are told, if they are told with enough conviction or by enough people or by an expert or
Yes,
whatever.
yes, absolutely.
So it takes a lot of wisdom, and it takes discernment. Discernment is also a part of wisdom. If you are not able to discern the truth from falsehood, then you are not a wise person. You may have a lot of knowledge, you may even have a high IQ, but you are not a wise person.
Mhm.
So a wise person is someone that has a lot of experience, a lot of embodied knowledge, with high standards of morality, of ethics, and virtue.
Mhm.
And that's why we have so very few wise people in the world, because it takes a lot of work, inner work.
Mhm. a virtue that is it's not some objective thing. It's like subjective and objective, but mainly also subjective, because that's what I see with wisdom. I love wisdom tradition in general. I mean, we have a wisdom tradition. Under that umbrella falls every philosophical, Oriental philosophical tradition, like Buddhism, Taoism, Hinduism, and religious traditions, wisdom tradition, and Judeo-Christian Islamic tradition also. But it's like not so much the belief in something, like more or less more, what can I, as you said, it's practical. What can I learn from there and apply it to my daily life? Like in Zen
Right.
Buddhism, for me, I was very interested in it, and I learned a lot about equanimity. Equanimity was the wisdom I took from it, and I know even in Taoism, the Wu Wei, which means non-action, non-resistance. This real wisdom you can practice. That's wisdom, That's what I like.
Yeah. Well, I think wise people are always examples and role models for everyone else, and and even like very well-known philosophers in Greece were
Yes.
very wise as well. So it's not about religion. It's about a moral compass, and it's about having really gone through a lot of experiences and being able to understand them, to embody them, to integrate them, and to make them real. And that's why it has nothing to do with intelligence. Of course, you need a certain degree of intelligence. It's not, if you are dumb, you cannot be a wise person, but it's not enough. It also has to do with other aspects, such as equanimity, such as compassion, such as understanding that whatever you sow, you will reap, and there are consequences to every cause that you are doing today. Whatever you plant, you will have to go through it yourself. So it takes a lot of inner work. Again, you need to work on your mind, you need to work on your heart, and you need to work on your spirit. And I think in this society that is so shallow and so materialistic, that we have forgotten, well, I wouldn't say we, because I haven't, but I say the society has forgotten what it really matters in life, and has become so utilitarian, and it's just objectifying people. And it's like, okay, people are not important unless I can use them for something, for my own goals. So I think we are at a very decadent time, and that's why the shift must happen, because we are at the end of Kali Yuga,
Kali
as
Yuga, yeah.
Hinduism they say. We are at the very end of depravation. We are at the very end of this experiment of how far we can go in separation from God or from the divine, and thinking that we are above everything else and everyone else. The ego is like, we have made the ego a deity, and I think this is very, very dangerous, and we are seeing it today.
Yeah, and it's very judgmental also, the ego. I mean, I love it when when we talk about like who we are, and then actually like people even would not admire is the wrong word, but would I don't know what the word now is, but when you go to the Dalai Lama and it's a spiritual leader, but I think we should do this all with ourselves also, foremost, so that
Well,
we are actually,
right, we are arriving at that time. This is like before we needed gurus to tell us what to do, and I think it's always good to have role models, as we were saying, that we choose, that has to be like really wise people. But at the end of the day, we have to become our own master, and this is the time for that. The time for external gurus is over. And of course, we need teachers, we need spiritual teachers to show us some map that will be very useful for us to go where we want to go, and guides that have already walked the talk, and they know what they're talking about. Those guys are priceless, but they are not above us. We have to become sovereign beings. We have to become our own masters. We come here to get our own mastery. And it's only when we graduation, exactly. So this is what ascension is. This is what enlightenment is. Is we come here to get to that point, and then we become masters ourselves. So yeah, as you said, for me, there are no gurus to follow anymore, to follow blindly. That's very dangerous, very dangerous. Not just in religion, but in everything else in this life.
I like to be very accepting, but I stay away from personally from organized religions. And when I see gurus, I trust it that they are very advanced in all this. But when I look at the followers, I think sometimes, do I want to become like them? I mean, there is great gurus we have nowadays all over. And it's certainly good to go there for a retreat and all this. But you can also see, what kind of people are those followers. I mean, those who are in the ashrams, those who are following this and that guru. And I'm not convinced for myself. I like it. I like to see it like a hero's journey, like Joseph Campbell, the father of mythology, explained it, the hero's journey. And yes, it is a journey which you have to undertake yourself. It's like there is this forest, and everybody goes in the main entrance. That's the lighting, and it's light there, and everybody is the main highway. Everybody goes there. But your journey, your hero's journey, is you're looking for your own entrance, and where it's sometimes dangerous, where it's dark, but once you're in, you're on your own, and then it's the journey, then it's the adventure starts. And I feel like also that the stages for me, when you talk about 7 stages, why would it be important to understand that there are 7 stages or stages of wisdom and I guess it's also developments, also enlightenment or awakening stages. Why do I need that? Why do I need to know that there are stages?
I think it's important because once you have a map, then you can go anywhere. And it's much more difficult when you don't have that map and you don't know where you need to go. So it makes things easier, and you have like signposts that you can follow. You can identify yourself. Where am I? Okay, I'm here. You see that, okay, I have already gone through all these stages, and this is what is waiting for me ahead. So you know where to go. You know what you need to work on, and you know where you need to go for the knowledge. So I think it can be very handy, and it speeds up your own evolution. So I am all for speeding up the evolution, since going and through experience is very important. But if you have the knowledge, it makes it easier, and it's already difficult enough here on Earth.
Yes, it is. It's so difficult also because I think the evolution is all in us. And when you go through the first stages, at least for me, I don't know where I am. Sometimes I'm not very advanced, and other times I think I'm already further ahead. But ultimately, what is the biggest challenge is for me always, when I look at my life, that to make sense out of our evolution. In other words, we have the animal state, the animal in us, and that is basically, it's the feelings, right? The feelings. And it's like a child, children, young people. We are going through all the stages in ourselves, in our life. And it's always about emotions. Many times we want to just neglect them, not listen to them, not even notice them. And other times we are getting out of control of some bad emotions or bad feelings. And then it's the animal nature, because I as I mentioned before, I did look at this 10 ox herding picture series. There's an ox in there, right? So, and we are not really calm and happy unless we can ride that horse and that ox. We can ride and tame him. But then the journey just starts after this. There's nothing happening yet except that you become serene and you have more peace of mind. But then comes transcending the ego, transcending the ego, transcending even the self. Like the Buddha said, there's anatman, yeah. So there's no self. I mean, there are just a few things which I like so much in Buddhism, but I would say also, like, I would not go into organized religions. I would love to speak with Buddha himself. You know, I like to always study the scriptures in every religion. But there, I mean, it's hard to believe that somebody who lived 2,500 years ago has such a meaning still. Because when you look at your life and you see it's like it's not satisfactory, that's obviously true. And that's the first noble truth. And then you go through this, that everything is impermanent, and we don't like it. Nobody likes it. And that's a major problem with our suffering. And then there's no self. How do you understand there is no self? No self. I feel it's such a freedom, but I'm far away from all this. But I just remember it sometimes that this is the way to go after I'm serene and after I have listened to my own emotions and after I'm again myself, basically, because you can, you know, I think the major problem nowadays is that distraction, because we distract ourselves so easily. From what are we distracting ourselves? From listening to ourselves, from our own wisdom, from our own emotions. That's where we get distracted. And the holy grail in the journey of the hero's journey, the holy grail is nothing else but that freedom which comes from being in the moment. But as I said, you know, we could talk a long time and I would learn so much from you. I just keep on listening and watching your other episodes on other interviews, Monica. It was a real pleasure to having you here. Really.
Thank you,
much.
Joseph. It's always an ongoing conversation, right?
Yes. So how can people find more out about the book and about you? What is your website?
Right. My website is my name is monicaesgueva.com. So MonicaEsgueva.com. And then I have a YouTube channel in English, one in Spanish and one in English, where I always put free content. And my book is available on Amazon worldwide. And if you are in the States, you can also find it in Barnes and Nobles and other outlets.
Fantastic. So now I can think about this review, which I wanted to write a few days ago already, the review, because I read it, and now I had you on the interview. And it was a very privileged interview with you. Monica, thank you so much for being on the show today. It was a true pleasure to interview and a learning experience for me and for my
Thank you
listeners.
so much. Thank you so much, Joseph. It was a pleasure to be here with you.
So the recap of the show with the show notes, with the website we mentioned where you can get a hold and get further information about Monica is all in the show notes, and the links mentioned all there on ownbythebeach.com, ownbythebeach.com. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to have you here again for our next episode. This is your host, Joseph Schinwald. Thank you and goodbye until we meet again.